Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What Fulfills You. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I'm your host. And on today's episode, I'm diving into a topic that was submitted by a listener. And this topic is around the difference between dating a guy and dating quote unquote the one. And for more context around this, she said that she finds that empaths like herself, it typically feels hard because they give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're dating for potential. Maybe they don't feel strong enough to be alone per se. And so they don't cut it off. And even when they know that the person is not for us. And a specific example she actually gave in addition with this submission is around how she knows someone that has been dating someone for a couple of months, maybe. It's like the classic, you're kind of dating 2-3 months, and one person wants to make it a committed relationship, and the other person doesn't have interest in making it a committed relationship, but both people decide to still stay. And so I want to preface that I do see this quite often. I think most of the time I see 70 to 80% of, at least I'll speak about women, fellow gals, this is something that a good majority do. And then there are the outliers or the smaller percentage that actually approach it maybe in a more what one would call secure attachment way. For example, when you are dating, if you find that you get attached quite easily, or maybe you want a committed relationship, but the person that you're dating doesn't want that, but you're not willing to step out of that situation, or vice versa, maybe the person you're dating wants a committed relationship, but you're not interested in that because maybe you don't see that as a long-term thing, or you don't see it as something enough for a foreseeable future for a relationship, but you still stick around, right? There are so many scenarios of that I've seen, and I've shared on this podcast before, maybe once or so, but I have had experiences, especially in the 3.5 years that I was single from like 22 to 25. I had short flings in those periods where, you know, if I was going on a second date with a guy, not only was I not dating anyone else, but also on the flip side, if I was asked out for a second date and I didn't see that as something I'm personally interested in doing, or I didn't see there to be a long-term fit or alignment or something that could progress, I genuinely actually respectfully said no. And I would communicate that. And that's probably the place I'm going to start this with, which is that if you are on the receiving end and someone, a guy, assumingly, if he wants to go out with you for a second time and you're not totally interested in doing that, it is okay to say no. And more importantly, believe it or not, while it might not occur in the moment, the guy will respect you a lot more if you respectfully tell him. If you just let him know, hey, thank you so much for reaching out, or thank you so much for wanting to take me out again on a second date, whatever wording you can use. Thank him, and then also let him know, out of respect for his time, out of respect for him as a person, you're not interested in going out again romantically, but let him know, like, I wish you all the best, you know, like, be kind, honest, and respectful. And I have experiences where I've said that to someone and he didn't respond well to it. He actually, I think I had told the person that I would genuinely love to stay friends. I wasn't interested in going out on a second date. And this person was also the type of person that probably doesn't often get a no because of their, for lack of better words, their success and their notoriety in their field. And so I think that caught him off guard, and that was probably something that hit his ego in a way. But like I've always said, they will respect you, whether even if it doesn't occur in the moment, they will remain with respect towards you because they will be able to realize and rationalize down the line, like, oh wow, Emily handled that with a lot of care. She was really honest and she didn't lead me on. That is a great girl and that is a great person, and I respect that. And guess what? This person down the road, by the way, this was years ago, but this person later on, like 6 months later, reached out, invited me to a group dinner, encouraged me to invite some of my girlfriends, whoever was available, and we actually remained friends and remained acquaintances and whatnot. And so that's not always the case, but in general, for the most part, I can't imagine a decently mature guy, or even if he's just like level-headed enough to recognize that you being open and honest with him is way better than you ghosting. And here's the funny part too. I had this conversation with this listener as well, and she talked about how there was someone that she was talking to that she kind of ghosted. And what it did to her was actually make her feel unsettled. It was actually eating her up internally because that's not really in alignment with how she would want to leave things. And so down the road, I think within a couple weeks, she had an opportunity to say something to the person. And that window of opportunity was taken. She was able to use that time to actually let the person know. And I think that made her feel better rather than completely ghosting and not saying anything. And you got to keep in mind too, if you are someone, whether you've been ghosted or you are someone that just ghosts and doesn't say anything, please keep in mind that also reflects on you, right? That is, I hate to say it, that is the more coward thing to do. And that speaks more about you as a person. And so same thing, when someone ghosts you or doesn't communicate with you, that is a reflection of them. And for me personally, I have been ghosted before, like a handful of times in my past. And the first time it ever happened, I definitely was a bit hurt by it. I was, I think, like 22 or so. And so I was, younger and less experienced. But as time went on, I never flinched again if I were to be ghosted by someone, because I just knew that, for two reasons. I think number one, again, why would I want to end up with a guy that didn't have the emotional maturity and stability and balls, let's just put it that way, to just let me know, hey, Emily, I've enjoyed our time together. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not so interested in like continuing this, or I'm not so interested in like pursuing this further. I would respect a man more for being able to tell me that. And so for me personally, it's an interesting reframe where I have a sense of peace knowing that either way, it's been a win-win, right? If someone did ghost me, that's the answer I needed. You did not have the emotional capacity to date someone like me who is going to be willing to communicate, who is going to be willing to respectfully decline or respectfully tell you, hey, this is how I feel about you, right? I've been able to move past that. And so I know that I'm going to naturally attract someone that can meet me there emotionally as well. And on the other hand, I've been lucky to have experience in receiving this from someone, and lucky enough at a younger age. So after my college relationship that lasted 4 years, a year later, I ended up dating someone for a brief period of time, but it was the strongest connection I've ever had in what I would call an unofficial relationship, one that was just a fling, right? There was no, it was a fling, but someone that I actually talked to every single day for like 2 to 3 months or so. And this person was quite older. I will admit that. I was 23 and he was in his 30s. But what I was able to experience with this person was the utmost, like, top tier emotional maturity, open communication, honesty, and also, interestingly, that's one of the experiences I have felt to this day the most deeply understood as a person in such a short period of time. So for someone to be able to understand me, understand my values, understand what lights me up, that felt obviously amazing. That's one of the best things that we can gain from any relationship dynamic, is feeling understood. But this person, when he eventually ended things with me, despite it just being a fling, he communicated it. And I remember I actually did cry. I was sad. I was 23. It was also like mid-pandemic too. This is like summer 2020. So there's so many things going on. I remember, like, I was so sad. But this person opened up the door so well, and it'd be kind of cool if I could like thank him in some way. But all that to say, he showed me what I deserve from a man when it comes to openness and communication. And he communicated in a very long, thorough message at a time where he was about to move from California to Austin, Texas for work-related reasons, and not necessarily a full move, but it was basically like that was shifting because, pandemic stuff, things were starting to open up. So he was able to go work on this project. And all that to say, he did such a great job in communicating everything to me that I knew from then, this is how things should be handled, and this is what maturity looks like. This is what respect and maturity looks like. And I have to say too, even after him, I had other experiences in dating other guys well into their 30s, and I definitely can say that not all of them, nor just because they're in their 30s, it doesn't mean that they have the maturity or capacity to communicate in this way. I just happen to have, dated someone that was like that. And so because he showed up that way for me, it definitely set the foundation of how I was going to show up for my future dating experiences. I definitely took from dating this person. I communicated similarly. I was open and honest and transparent in the same way he was with me, because I remember that I couldn't, yes, I was like sad that thing had ended, but I remember that all I could have for him was respect and, love and admiration, because that is the way you do it, right? And also at that time too, early on in my 20s, I very much learned and adapted to the belief that if someone wants to be with you, he will be with you, and he will move mountains to be with the woman that he wants to be with. And so I also accepted very easily that, hey, you know what? I'm so glad he messaged me this. I'm so glad he communicated this to me. At the same time, I know deep down that if he really wanted to find a way to keep dating, keep staying connected in whatever shape or form, he would make that effort. And so I had no hard feelings with it being that way. And I think a combination of all of that, the way he handled kind of parting ways, and also my own beliefs and how I knew that I deserve someone that truly will make it work with me, that's why I was able to be like, okay, you know what? I will be sad about this, but life goes on, So that for me comes from personal experience. Now, on the flip side, I think one of the big reasons that I've seen personally why girls, especially when you're in your 20s, I can at least speak to that, why girls tend to stick around even if they don't see this going anywhere, or if they're not receiving something that they want. Maybe it's commitment, whatever that is. One of the reasons why I see girls struggle with walking away or removing themselves from a dating situation where they're not getting actually what they want, which I'm going to preface to dating separate from a long-term relationship, because I think that in a long-term relationship, while there are similarities, there are also different aspects that we're working with, especially when it comes to dating for 1 year versus 3 years versus 5 years. Yes, again, similar rules, but still slightly different. All that to say, biggest thing I see is that a lot of girls don't have their own life, their own hobbies, their own interests, their own friendships and relationships and things that light them up, that keep them so full, fulfilled, and healthily busy that their energy then just goes into this whole dating scene and this guy that they're talking to, or maybe the second guy that they're gonna go on a date with. Like, that's their whole life, and that's the whole saying, like, oh, we're doing it for the plot, right? Look, I've been there and I've had my fair share of fun, and I still very much enjoy myself and live my life like I normally would as a 20-some-year-old, especially here in New York. But one of the big differences I have noticed and have reflected on about myself and why I've been able to kind of approach dating in this way from my early 20s is because when my boyfriend in college broke up with me in the middle of, at a time where I was transferring universities, at a time we were living together, if you've been listening, you know the story. I had no choice but to actually look myself in the mirror and be like, you gotta work on yourself. You gotta go have some hobbies, fill up your time with the things that you want to do. I remember, just thinking out loud right now, I was a junior in college. It was fall semester. I had no friends. It was a Friday evening, probably like October or November. And Fridays, I would usually go to coach figure skating. That was my part-time job. And Friday afternoons. And so before sunset, I would finish. And I remember one of the Fridays, I drove over to Laguna Beach. I picked up this amazing bowl from, I forget what this place is called, Active Culture. I picked up this amazing bowl. And I took myself to this little place called Crescent Bay in Laguna Beach. And I went to go and watch the sunset by myself. And I was sad, but also starting to feel that sense of joy and fulfillment on my own. I realized, like, this is what it means to do things for yourself and to start to enjoy your own company. Did I, at the time, as a 20-year-old, did I want a friend with me? Of course. But I didn't have it yet. I didn't have the close girlfriends yet. I didn't have, anyone to really truly lean on at a time, and at a time where I just needed a friend or friends to listen and be with me, not to, give me guidance and all that, which I think sometimes can be a thing when, let's say in my personal experiences, if I bring this to a parent, sometimes they can try to guide you too much, when I think the best thing you can do for people going through things is just to be there and be present and just to listen, which is also something I've learned as a friend as well. When I'm with a friend that's in need, I often try to figure out or ask them, hey, what do you need from me right now? Do you want me to help you solve the problem? Do you want me to just listen? What is that, And so my first 2 to 3 years in my 20s, from 20 to 23, I had no choice but to find joy and happiness by myself because I went through my first breakup. And, the first one is always probably the hardest, as far as I know, or at least let me rephrase it. Your first love, and if that ends in a breakup, it is typically always the hardest. And so I was 20 years old experiencing this, and I was lucky now looking back because I was forced to tap into, okay, how are we going to build Emily from the ground up? And years went by where I started doing all these different things for myself. I started podcasting my senior year of college. I started to make friends, some of my best friends to this day. I met in school. I met also just all over Southern California. I just filled up my time with things outside of a romantic partner. And I believe that when you can do that, and when you do that before you get into something, not that it has to be intentional, but when you put the focus on, this is what I believe is when I say, when you focus on yourself, this is what I mean. You focus on yourself in do you first, right? Do the things that you want to do first. And as always, from my personal experience and from what I've heard from others with successful experiences, when you do that first, the guy somehow comes along. Okay? And every relationship of mine happened out of nowhere. Wasn't planning it, wasn't expecting it. Definitely didn't want it. Actually, at all 3 times, I don't think I wanted a relationship at all. My first relationship, I met this guy, fall semester of my freshman year, so I probably had an idea like, oh, I'm gonna, just enjoy college. I'm a freshman, I'm single, but yeah, I think when you like someone, and there's just like, well, I want to date you. So you kind of can't hold back, I think, with that feeling. I think that's something to think about if you are someone that struggles to let go of someone, especially if they tell you that they want a relationship with you. So like the example that this listener submitted, they know of someone that, she knows she doesn't want anything further with this person, but it's just kind of out of convenience still dating him. And on the other hand, this guy wants a committed relationship. He's asked her maybe once or twice already, right? And my response to that is, this is twofold. They are both at fault in the sense that if anyone has read Attachment Style or Attachment Theory, I forget which book, but it's or Attached, I think that's the book, but it's around attachment styles. And one of the key takeaways I had from that book is that securely attached people are often always taken or off the market very quickly. And I see it all the time. I see it so much. And in the example that she gave me, I shared with her that the guy is, and also this is often very much reversed too. I feel like I often hear more that the girl wants the relationship and the guy is, dilly-dallying. But in this case, the guy is insecurely attached. Sounds like he's probably the anxious one because he wants a commitment, a committed relationship with the girl, but she's saying no. And if he was securely attached, meaning he recognizes he's not getting this need met from this person he's tried 2 or 3 times already, if he felt full and secure in himself, he would honor that. And he would be like, hey, you know what? I like you, I respect you, but out of respect for myself as well, I'm not getting what I'm looking for here. And so for that reason, I'm going to let this fling go, right? On the flip side, if I were in this girl's position, I would certainly tell the guy if he's asked me 1 or 2 times and I've said no, I would think about, why am I still hanging around? And this is where I probably actually struggle to relate to this part, because I personally could not imagine dating someone out of convenience. And I admittedly say this, like, this is my mindset for the past 5 years or so, because I think ever since my first breakup ever, I started to pour into myself so much that I did not have time to just date for convenience. I've had this conversation with other girlfriends as well, in that dating, especially if you're the type of person that kind of goes on multiple dates or whatever, when you're in the dating scene and you're in the dating pool and you're going on dates or whatever, that is a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of mental energy. And I personally have so much on my plate that I love. I have amazing friends, and I am always looking for more female friendships. I love to connect with people I do work and business with. I love to build what I'm building. I'm doing this podcast, have my marketing agency. I am just building my life, and I'm also skating. I'm playing tennis and playing pickleball sometimes. Like, I'm doing all these different hobbies that I don't have the time to just date someone where it becomes like a part-time job, right? So that's, I think, in my opinion, that's where I would kind of come back to, which is, why do you have the time to date someone out of convenience? Why are you filling the void with dating someone that you're not fully interested in, which is a double whammy? You're not only kind of hurting yourself, but you're not being honest with that person as well, and you're wasting their time as well. And so in this scenario, this person's also insecurely attached because they're not willing to walk away. That might come out of fear of being alone. That might come out of fear of doing the thing that they actually need to do, which is pouring into themselves. I actually know of a guy as well, like a guy friend, where he, for the longest time, he avoided and kind of continues to avoid it, but I think night and day for the past several years, it just hits him in the face every time, in that he must solve this hurdle in his life. And I do believe that we all have our own, I don't know what's the saying, like a dark night, or just like that own life obstacle. Each person has their own, and it keeps hitting you in the face until you face it head on. And so for him, it's been about figuring out his life path, his life direction. Career is part of it. And out of avoiding that, instead of figuring that part out, he would do different things instead. He would distract himself with dating and going on apps, and then he would stop that because that wasn't actually what he wanted to do. But then, he would still indulge in dating and just trying to like do the things that, just kind of make you feel good in the moment. It's kind of like, okay, you should go to bed, but you're watching Netflix instead, or you should maybe like read a book for once, but you're scrolling on your phone or scrolling on TikTok. It's the same psychological concept, which is that you're filling the void with something that is less productive, less healthy for you in the long run, but you're not doing the thing that you actually need to do. And sometimes the other problem when it comes to just dating alone, sometimes the problem is that we're all in this idea like we're dating for someone's potential. I personally have never, I'm thinking about my own experiences. I can't say that I've ever dated someone for their potential, but I will say that there are differences in dating someone for their potential. In other words, dating someone for the idea that they say that they will be and that they want to be, versus dating someone and investing in someone because you actually believe that you could build a life with them. And this is the entrepreneur in me, which is that I don't see, like, let's say you're dating a guy and he's getting started in his career journey. Maybe he just went to law school. Maybe he is starting a small company. Maybe he's beginning, I don't know, whatever he's doing, right? But it could be, I don't really equate that to potential because I'm not going to measure whether I would date a guy based on his income level or his success level or any of that. But I differentiate that from my ability to judge whether a male partner has the ability and the skill to build and rebuild over and over and over again. So I think of circumstances like the pandemic or the 2008 financial crisis, the dot-com boom, like everything in history that has impacted people's financial standing. I think about those moments that are going to be inevitable in life. And I think about, could this person pick it up from ground zero and build from scratch again? Could I trust this person's skill set to go hunting again? So that to me is different. And I 100% encourage you to think about this too. That is different than measuring someone's potential and whether you would like that outcome. The outcome to me also, in my opinion, is a little superficial. If you're measuring whether you would like someone based on a certain outcome, that's on you, sister. Like, that is probably not a great headspace to be in if your goal is to have a fulfilling, intentional relationship. If your goal is to have something long-term, to be able to build with someone, and you also believe, like myself, that relationships are the root of our joy and fulfillment, then you're probably going to want to look at something deeper. And so, of course, if I am dating, I would pay attention to someone's skill sets and their ability to build on that. And I will speak from my own experience in where I have been, right? Like, I have had different skills that have been built more in recent years and other skills that have been more present in my earlier 20s. I think something that I didn't have strong experience in was as simple as cooking and doing kind of these homey things that I personally love doing, but I never really had crazy reason to do that, especially when you live by yourself. Like, to cook all the time is a lot of work and a lot of effort. And so that is a skill set that I have learned more so in the recent 2 years. And I also do a lot of cooking and dinner nights at home, and I invite my friends over, and that's something I love doing too. Is like, I love like cooking and cooking with my friends, baking, like I love that kind of stuff. And so of course, would I feel like it's a little superficial if a guy judged my ability to, I don't know, if that was like an aspect that he appreciated in a female partner, like her interest and or skill set to, cook nice things or cook some decent meals at home. Would I feel like it's a little unfair and superficial judging me in the moment? Yes. And so same thing. And I think an easy rule of thumb, I will leave this episode on. Easy rule of thumb is this: how would you want to be treated if roles were reversed? So if you're on the opposite end of whatever is happening or whatever, you're on the receiving end, what would you want? Okay, because I think that helps us be more empathetic, but also recognize what is the respectful thing to do, right? So if, I remember this is exactly why when I was, dating, I always knew that if a guy did not have strong interest in me, I would want him to respectfully tell me and to not lead me on and to simply own that. And so that's what I did in return. Of course, it's always how you deliver something, but that's just the most important, is leading with your values, because ultimately, eventually, you will come across people that also share those values. I hope this episode was worthwhile and you had some takeaways. As always, if you had some takeaways, please be sure to let me know. DM me on Instagram at Emily E. Duong or at What Fulfills You. I love chatting with you guys and hearing your thoughts. And to watch the guest episodes, you can head to the YouTube channel, just search What Fulfills You, or just head to the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in today. I will chat with you all in the next one.